Shalom and welcome to another edition of Parsha Talk. I'm Rabbi Elliot Malamet in Highland Park, New Jersey, at the Highland Park Conservative Temple Congregation on Shemet. And joining me, as always, my good friends, Rabbi Barry Chesler, Solomon Schechter, Day School, Long Island, and Rabbi Jeremy Kalmanofsky, Anshe Chesed, New York City. We are starting a new book. But before that, first, Mazel Tov, my daughter, my aunt, graduating from Columbia University, Mazel Tov, Master's in Occupational Therapy. Graduation is this week.
Mazal Tov.
Very thrilled about it. No other news to announce yet, but we are waiting imminently for other news from the land of Israel. Let us see if the population of the Jewish people expands by 1, which actually is a very good segue.
Wait, who would that be?
Who would that be? No, So let's, before we get into population matters and the census that's in Bemidbar, can we just take a second to unpack the first verse? Because as usual, the Torah conveys to us so much information with so few words. By the Adonai al Moshe, okay? So we could spend a lot of time talking about God speaking to Moses. Bemidbar Sinai, okay? This is location. Be'ohel Moed, in the tent. Be'echad lachodesh hasheni, on the first day of the second month. Bashana hashenit, on the second year. Letzeta me'eretz Mitzrayim, since they're leaving. So I'm going to say here. Let's do this. The sermon stand down. Okay, what's your best shot on that first verse in terms of, what's information? What information is compressed there for you when you think about the place and the time? Where does it take your mind? Okay, I'll start with you, Barry Chesler. Where do you go with that?
So the first thing that strikes me is that we spend a lot of time talking about Midbar Sinai, when most of us talk about Har Sinai, the mountain of Sinai, rather than the wilderness of Sinai. And especially as rabbinic Jews, for us, the key geographical site is Mount Sinai. And the book doesn't quite locate us at the mountain, although God is speaking to Moses throughout the book, but at somewhere in the wilderness, in an unsettled state, as it were. So we're about to leave. The book of Numbers is a journey, which will take us to the entrance of the land of Israel. And, journeys are fraught with both danger and excitement. And by locating us in a terrain which suggests a lack of stability, shall we say, I think that it prepares us for what's going to happen, because this is a rocky book.
This is a rocky book
in terms of the events, not just the land that they travel through, but the events are going to rock the nation to its core.
So what you're saying then is that the introductory verse, it really sets a tone, a geographical tone that is about wilderness. Yeah, Jeremy, your best shot.
If I cannot, however, make the joke that it's an Iraqi book, it doesn't take place in Iraq at all. They never go to Iraq. They stay here inside. I don't know. But first of all, that was lovely. I would also, sometimes when we read the Torah, like certain details, certain especially chronological details, sort of, at least for me, kind of go in one ear and out the other. So it happened such a day, such a month. When I'm reading to myself, I won't even pay attention. Here's when it happened. Well, actually, this happened on the what's our month again? Here, give it to me again.
The
first day of the second month.
The
second year after they've left Egypt. So this means we're at the beginning of the second year. We are exactly 1 month from the erection of the Mishkan, the tabernacle. Back in Shmot, it tells us, Bayom HaChodesh Harishon Be'echad LaChodesh. The first day is when they built the Mishkan. All that happens at the end of Shmot. Then they stay at Mount Sinai for as long as they stay at Mount Sinai, and throughout the book of Leviticus, Or is this 1 year after that? Maybe it's 1 year after that. But the coincidence, it's either 1 month or 1 year and 1 month after they've created the Mishkan. So the compressedness of this is quite intense.
So
Let me just
I want
have
to be.
one other
Go
thought,
ahead.
though, based on something that Jeremy said. So I think that the Mishkan really is important here because the Mishkan represents Mount Sinai itself.
Yeah.
And so Mount Sinai is moved from the mountain, as it were, to the center of the Israelite people, where it will travel with them.
So here, I want to go really homiletical here and say, these are great. I mean, the data here is fascinating in terms of locating us in time and space, right? We have a date stamp, right? And that puts us into reflection as to what's gone on the previous year. And we could enumerate all the great and also terrifying events that happened in the previous 13 months here for Israel. And we have a geography stamp. And I think about this metaphorically. I'm part of what we do, obviously, is we talk to people in crises in their lives, and people move in and out of different zones or regions. And I've had opportunity to talk to people who are facing some real challenges, medical challenges, life challenges, etc. I often say, you're in a new territory. You're now in a new territory. You're now in a new continent. A person with a severe illness is now in a new frame of reference. The people now are in a different frame of reference. Look, here, we've just experienced something quite sporadic, but also traumatic in Israel over the last week. Over 1,300 rockets fired. Okay, so it's same old, but it's not the same old for the people in Sderot. There seems to be the passage through one territory to another, metaphorically speaking, that you go from zone to zone. And so the people, we've had that terminus in at the end of the book of Vayikra, which is they've been stationary for some time. Now you get the great sense of movement, and the movement is going to it's going to bring new information to them, new vistas, new geography, new zones, maybe even a new language, maybe even a new discoveries, right? How do you live as you move through the desert? And I think that there's a reality here in the biblical imagination, and there's also a metaphor here, which is life goes through different territories, and you move through different continents, as it were. And you get new language, and I think that we're encountering some of that. So part of the language that we're going to encounter is, let's say right at the beginning, it's the necessity to count. And before we get to the census, the reading of these names. So these are the names of the men who shall assist you, and it's a song. I can't avoid thinking that there's music here. Leruvain, Elitzur ben Shteur, Lishimon, Shelumiel. So they're chanted in a similar way. Who knows if that's how it was originally? But the names have a poetry to them, and the names encode a lot of meaning because they're compound names. Elitzur ben Shideur, Shelumiel ben Suri Shaddai. Most of those names are made up of two elements. And Jacob Milgram in his comment says that this is old. So what do you make of this? Are you getting the poetry here, or am I just being too, I don't know?
No, I think you make an important point, and of all the names, there are very few that we ever hear from again.
Yeah.
Gamliel, which doesn't quite sound Hebrew to my ear, is the name that makes it into the rabbinic canon. There are Rabban Gamliels in the Mishnah and the Talmud.
Well, Gamliel would mean what? It means
indeed, I have God.
Gamliel, but Gamal Oti.
Gamal, God has repaid me, I think.
God
something
is
like
redeemed.
that. God is my reward, maybe something like that.
Oh, Gamliel, Gamal. Well, yeah, okay, that goes.
God is my Gamal.
One of the good names is Eliasaph ben Deuel, and elsewhere is Eliasaph ben Reuel, the Dalet and the Resh.
Nice.
So clearly it's the same name, which either means Deuel, you should know God, or Reuel, you should be God's friend. The funny name is Pagiel ben Ochran, which would, I think, just simple meaning of the words would mean something like, God attacked me, son of troublemaker.
No, Pagiel Lifkoa is also to
Appeal
have
to get
appeal
attention.
to have a divine encounter.
It could
Where
certainly
you're injured.
What's the Ochran?
Achran. He was
He's
not
a
Hebrew.
troublemaker.
Or
Wasn't Jewish. Okay.
Um,
Achira.
Akira's another one.
that's
Achira,
that's a great
yeah.
name. You
Achira,
can
my brother
imagine
would-
the mother looking at her newborn son and saying, "Achira."
No.
This boy is bad.
My favorite name in the whole Tanakh is Chatzar Mavet. Back in the Noach genealogies, somebody's name is Chatzar Mavet, the courtyard of death.
So when I was in Israel over 50 years ago now, there was a kid on the kibbutz whose name was Guni, which doesn't quite sound right to the American ear, but he assured me it was the name of a tribal chieftain from Naphtali, who's mentioned, I think, maybe in the spy story. I can't remember.
I think, yeah.
So one of the comments that Milgram makes is that these are really old. There's a very, very ancient strata of names because the Yud-Hey, is it the theonymic, the theophoric element?
Theophoric.
The theophoric element is not in the names like Netanyahu or Binayahu. Yahu is the theophoric name. So
It's a
if you
chocolate dream.
exactly, you put these names under a magnifying glass and you see the biblical scholars, Milgram, citing here, they see some very, very deep antiquity. It's almost like doing archaeology on the text. And
So
I don't know why it
this
would be
text is ancient.
I don't know why it'd be early or late, but it clearly is the Yud Hey people versus the Aleph Lamed people. Like if I'm not mistaken, I think Yocheved actually is the first Yud Hey theophoric name.
Interesting.
I should say one thing about the Rocky character of the book, which is obviously correct. It's definitely Bamidbar is definitely one of the 5 best books of the Chumash, but it's to me it doesn't really have the power of to me it's my least favorite thing. It's a least favorite of these books. Everything is hard, everything is trouble. They're going through the Midbar for all the reasons that you alluded to. And I just want to make a little bit of a cross-lingual pun here and say that we have a book called Shmot and we have a book called Numbers. We have in Hebrew, we call Exodus Shmot because it begins with names. And to me, that sort of works as something sweet to say, when the tribes go down to Egypt and we enumerate each one, we say everybody's name. And this one, we do say these names of the tribal chieftains, but it's almost like the English or Latinate title of the book of Numbers. It begins with these censuses, and you don't see the experience or the value, the importance of each individual person, which is kind of what I want to have a community. It's almost like the individuality is absorbed into this vast collective of hundreds of thousands of people, and it's maybe the anonymity is part of what leaves me with a little bit of a alienated feeling from this book.
So I want to put out an idea, which is that we have data here. There's data here. Of course, what you're saying is like the book of Shemot names has numbers in it, and the book of Numbers has names in it. There's a certain paradox, and so there's data here in terms of listing everybody. But we get into all this data of the tribal populations, and I wonder, given the fact that the instrumentality of recording data was not what it is today. Of course, we represent data with all sorts of visual tools and graphs, and of course, with technology, we are able to manipulate data. In the absence of that kind of instrumentality, the only thing that you have is oral culture, and you have text culture, and so it's a theme that we've returned to many times. But there's music here, and that this this text may have been encoded in a kind of song. That is to say, we are recalling an early state of our history through this information, and we have a kind of romantic idea. And what we're getting here, for lack of a better term, is a snapshot. The same way, for example, that every census represents a snapshot that is only relative to what the next census is and what the previous census was. I give you my example, is that we synagogue rabbi people, we are very sensitive to membership number, the membership census. How many people purchase tickets, in 5783 for high holidays versus 5782? And that differential indicates either growth or shrinkage. And that piece of data all of a sudden conveys a valence to it, plus or minus, and also an emotion to it. But go ahead.
So what I would say is that the data here also is an attempt to reclaim a story. So one of the things that happens, especially I think when we study history, is we forget all the ferment that goes into day-to-day life. And we tend to see the end result and think that decisions were made and things happened and then other things happened and everything moves on a line. And that's not the way it works. So what struck me listening to you talk about the names is that these are the old names because that way of doing things is over. And the book alerts us to that because we know, having read it more than once, that this is a way of life that's dying out. Those old names we're not gonna see them again, because that way of doing things and what we're going to end up with is a new relationship with God. And one way we could look at the book of Numbers or any book of the Torah is as a journey to discover God in transition, not at a moment like the snapshot, but more like an album.
Well, you'll see differences in names when we get to the names of the spies in a few weeks from now. They're markedly different in terms of what they sound like and what they look like. And what you're saying then is that, so it's a great theme. I love this theme that you have to do a little bit of digging in order to figure out what the story is. So you're saying the story is a story of generational transition, which I think that's one of the overarching themes. It's going to emerge as one of the overarching themes of Bemidbar, because here at this point, there hasn't been a crisis yet that's going to keep that. We are reading this and we're saying, yes, it's 11-day journey. It's what, a 2-week journey, 3-week journey, maybe at most. The manna is feeding us. There will be plenty of water, and it's this before the spies, before all the terrible debacles that happen, and everything is going to be crushed. This journey that was supposed to be a few weeks is going to last 40 years now. We don't know this now. Spoiler alert. Yes. I don't know, Jerry, you want to pick up on any of this?
No, I'm good.
You're good. You're good. So what we have then we have the organization of the population in a camp, okay? And the camp is going to be, again, we map out the camp in diagrams. There's 4 different sectors to it, 4 different tribal units: the tribal unit of Judah, and the tribal unit of Reuven, and the tribal unit of Ephraim, and the tribal unit of Dan. Judah is in the east, and Reuven is on the south, and Ephraim is on the west, and Dan is in the north. And there's a group, the tribal groupings are like that. I mentioned, Jerry, before you came on, Barry and I were talking about this. So around Sukkot, I was studying these texts, and I was thinking about the Na'anuim. I want to get your reaction to this, okay? So when you shake your lulav to the north, well, how do you shake it? East, south,
East, south, west, north, up, and down.
Up, down. So among all of the different symbolisms that you can have, I came up with this one.
Okay, that's good.
Which is, we're constructing in our imagination the encampment of the Israelites, and so that we are a Mishkan, and that we have around us the sense of peoplehood. And so that, I mean, it's very narcissistic and egocentric, but what else would you expect? But it's the idea that I can create in my imagination a personal sense of movement through the choreography of my waving. And that captures my own imagination. That since there is a sense of, at Sukkot, the recollection of movement in the desert through the structure of the sukkah, the standing with the lulav, in addition to all of its other meanings, namely water and God and divine presence, there's a sense of peoplehood. Klal Yisrael.
I love it.
Give me a mark on that.
That's an A. Now, isn't it the case? I'm trying to remember, is this in rabbinics or is this in the Torah itself, that there has to be a defined distance, that each tribe and each of the 4 tribal camps has a prescribed distance from the Mishkan itself.
I think you're right. I think
that might be in rabbinics, as opposed to in the Torah itself. But I think it's interesting that, I mean, this is simply one of the Bible's features, is that you can't get too close. Hazar HaKarev Yumat, the non-Kohen is put to death if they come in the wrong area. And there's something, if perhaps we're, Nadav and Avihu are mentioned in the Parsha because Aaron's own genealogy is given, and they mention the fact that Nadav and Avihu were the older 2 children and they died. There's a quality, like that story has left its fingerprints on this arrangement, and there's a kind of alienation. And it's interesting also because the Haftarah, which is it's controversial Haftarah, because it's to say the very least, there's the raging prophet who is the stand-in for raging God, is violently angry towards his unfaithful wife as God is violently angry towards unfaithful Israel. There's a lot of imagery that strikes a modern reader as being like, a kind of abusive husband thing. But one of the interesting features of that Haftarah and Hosea is that it's primarily an erotic metaphor, right? That God and Israel are like a married couple, and the passion and the intensity and the expectations of loyalty, that's like human eros and love. And to me, it's really interesting that, like, the geographical, don't get too close quality to the array in the Torah is very counter to the I want you to be super duper close in the Haftarah.
Yeah, but the sanctuary is a dangerous place.
That's why the Nadav and Avihu reference is interesting.
Exactly, and therein lies the great paradox of the spiritual life. It's we're attracted to it, but it can be dangerous. You can go off the deep end. You can be damaged by it, and that God is this, appears as the burning bush. It's completely irrational, but contained also. It's fire and powerful, but it will destroy you, but it's contained. And Moses, is the one that has that vision.
Right, because religion is not supposed to be safe. It's supposed to give you a way to live with danger.
So expand on that.
The Rashi is the thing that's.
We are losing you. Boom.
I'm back in. I wasn't gone very long.
The Rashi.
The Rashi to chapter 2, verse 2. Yachanu bnei Israel mineged saviv le'ohel moed yachanu. And Rashi is quoting the Midrash from somewhere here, Bemidbar Rabbah, and it says it's alpayim amah, it's 2,000 cubits, and from that you get the idea that we get the idea of the Tchum HaShabbat, that you're not allowed to walk outside the camp more than 2,000. You're not allowed to walk outside the edge of your city on Shabbat more than 2,000 cubits. That idea comes from this spot.
Where's the tomb of
But
Shabbat?
I think it also is mentioned with the Levitical cities later in the book.
Levitical cities have a 2,000 cubit, what's that word? Greens word or something like that, like a green belt around the city. This one says that they were 2,000 cubits, exactly 2,000 cubits, so that on Shabbos they could still go to the Ohel Moed, but they had to live at a kind of a reasonable distance. I mean, so when you think about,
New York City.
you were saying before about what's realistic, what's not realistic, what parts of this resonate. Okay, you got hundreds of thousands of people, at the center of which is the Mishkan. And by the way, the hundreds of thousands of people are spreading out like a couple of kilometers away.
It's a very dense population.
It's like New Jersey.
It's like New Jersey, exactly, or New York City, or the Upper West Side. Okay.
No, it's not like the Upper West Side.
No. Okay. So we're nearing the end of our conversation. I just wanted to cue you on that, but just want to go to the end and talk, for example, about the role of firstborn, the role of the Levites, the replacement of the Levites, the substitution of the tribe of Levi for firstborn, and how that plays itself out, and perhaps you may want to talk about the roles that these people play.
This is one of my favorite things about I think this is a Bible story, a Bible motif that I find really gripping, which is the Bible, of course, inherits a world in which firstborn, like just physical firstborns, their concept must be something like the physical firstborns, just do get the best dosage. They're the strongest, the best looking, the best, and birth order is as decisive as what was Adler's first name? Arthur, Alfred, Abraham, or something. The psychologist said, birth order is everything, and the Bible does inherit that, and it has a primogeniture law, and it does care about the Bechor. But the Bible loves the story that the secondborn is actually better than the firstborn. The secondborn is more deserving. The younger turns out to have moral nobility, and the firstborn, despite all evident, expectations, is not really up to the task. And so part of the way that's expressed is in this amazing story. We know, like, for example, from the Samuel story, which, we use the Haftarah on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, that his mother dedicates him to the temple because he's the firstborn. And if you're like just a general old, Jew who knows something about, well, wait a second, that doesn't make him a Levite. That doesn't make him a Kohen. That story must make sense in a context where firstborns are the ones who work in temples.
So in a way, she's also being archaic, and she's hearkening back to a previous era where the firstborn went to God, basically.
So it may be the case that that story either really dates from the early time or is self-consciously archaizing.
Yes.
Right? Once upon a time when the firstborns went to, but the Bible it has inherited that system and critiques it. And to me, it's like the Bible is saying, but by telling so many stories about the secondborns who actually do deserve to lead, the Bible may also be saying, may be making a critique about the quote unquote, natural hierarchy of things. If you think that so and so is just the most important and the most qualified by dint of birth, you better think twice, because the Levites, who as a clan, at least in this, that can become, of course, its own hierarchy, but at least in this, the claim is that firstborns, they're going to disappoint you, but a clan that is devoted to serving God and leading the people and all, those are people you want to trust more. And so the firstborns get displaced. There's not quite the right number of Levites. They have to, in addition to Levites taking the roles, the Levites have to pay more money to redeem the firstborns who are too many of them. And so a clan of teachers and servants and priests replaces the seeming natural hierarchy of the strongest, best looking, apparent leaders.
So I want to take a completely different tack at this, which is that having a system of firstborn, really subverts the family, right? If all your firstborn go to the temple, then what happens is your family structure gets damaged. Because as any of us, with children would readily understand, is that, if your firstborn no longer has a certain set of loyalties or obligations, responsibilities to the family, the whole family system really, is injured by that. And I think the Torah being so family centric, the biblical view of the world is so rooted in the cohesion of family, in the sense, not that any of the biblical families are that, they're all messed up in their own ways, but at least the Torah wants to give them a chance at staying together, and that the idyllic position, the idyllic view of the Torah is that your family should be intact, and you keep your firstborn there, and let the Levites do that stuff. In the end, it's a failure. The Levites also don't throughout biblical history, they don't amount to what they have been, what they have been idealized for. But at least it's an attempt here to create that class of people who to harness that zeal. That's
right. And the Torah gives us more than one account for this, because we have the story of the golden calf where the Levites come to Moses' side. And then we have also the idea that the firstborn belonged to God because of the 10th plague.
Exactly. So they're conflict, I
Right.
guess. Well, that's it. And so the Levites have these very specific roles, which the Parsha ends with. They take down they're to pack up the different pieces of furniture, right? It says here, at the breaking of camp, Aaron and his son shall go in and take down the screening curtain and cover the ark of the pact with it. They shall lay a covering of dolphin skin over it and spread a cloth of pure blue on top, and they shall put its poles. They're movers. They're just,
Lepers.
they're the moving company. It's such a gorgeous picture,
It's the pre-Israelite movie company.
Take down the drapes, they cover the parocha, they cover the Aron Kodesh with it. We have that relationship with our sacred objects. When we take a Sefer Torah up, we move a Sefer Torah. We never like to take it just without. We wrap it in a tallis. We wrap it. Part of that is for protection. Part of that's respect, but maybe part of that is also echoing back to this. You don't move sacred objects without a certain sense of reverence for them. Cool.
Well said.
Well said. And that brings us to the end of our conversation here. We want to thank you for watching, for listening. We love your comments, and we really, really honor you for spending the time with us. We get these comments from people that tell us how much they enjoy watching us kibitz with each other and laugh with each other, which is great, because that's what the study of Torah is all about. So we want to say it's our early in the week, but Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And see you all next week on the next edition of Parasha Talk.